Welcome, everybody, to Strangest Species Season 2, Episode 9. I am your host, Mike Davis, here with my lovely co-host, Ethne Davis. How are you today, babe?
Doing really good.
Awesome.
It's on the heat wave going up
We're
here.
going back up.
Going back up.
Like 108 or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, not today.
No.
But you can feel it. It's just creeping up every day, which is going to be a great... I love that it's on the weekend.
Yeah.
Like...
The last 2 days have been cool. Overcast, rainy. Cool breezes. It's been nice.
But yesterday was really humid. Which
actually, last night was really humid.
Was not really typical for our area. So anyway.
Yeah. So this is a little different today. We are actually recording at like 3:30 in the afternoon.
We've only ever done this like maybe one or two other times where it's actually a daytime recording.
And
it's usually when we pre-record.
Right.
Yeah.
Tonight, we realized today that Ethne's not going to be here all weekend.
To be able to record for...
So it's like, we got to do this right now. Yep. I'm taking the kids to see Frozen, the Broadway musical, tonight.
I'm going to clean the house, you guys. And I know this is ridiculous, but I am so excited. I've already been cleaning so much. So really quick, our boys on Monday night.
These boys are 12, 10, and 7.
Decided to do a challenge. And we have a tree house. And they were like, okay, we're going to stay in the treehouse. And then they were like, okay, the treehouse is just too tiny. So then we're going to move the trampoline over to the entrance of the treehouse. And we can only stay on the trampoline or the treehouse forever, basically. They're not allowed to get off. They're not allowed to come in. If they make another person sad or cry or be mean, then they can get kicked off. Essentially, the winner of the challenge gets bought.
The others have to buy them.
Yeah. The others have to buy them each a dollar store item. So they will get $3 store items. This is all for $3 store items. And they have been going strong. I mean, they even slept in there last night. They have not been in my house. This is day 2. I mean, they started at like 6:30 or 7. So anyway, it's basically the best challenge that's ever happened.
This is day 3, isn't it?
Well, they started Monday night after dinner.
Oh, okay.
So they were there for like a couple hours. But yeah, officially this is day 2. Like we're talking 7 a.m. until they go to bed. And
they got snacks, they got beds, they've got so many things out there.
The only thing is they can come in for meals because I want to make sure they're getting enough food.
They can't pee. They have to. They can get off the treehouse to pee, but they have to stay outside and pee outside.
Well, only because they're boys.
Right.
Right. Okay. But it's literally the best challenge. And if I would have suggested this, it would not be as... They are committed. And it is amazing because I can clean my house in quiet and it doesn't get messy somewhere else. So I'm like...
This is what life would be like if we had no children.
Well, that would be sad. I don't want that. So...
No, me either. I'm just saying this
is what it will be like when we're like empty nesters.
In the afternoon.
Yeah.
And
all the things. So anyway, I just had to preface that this is the best challenge ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're out there right now.
Yep, they are.
Good. Okay. What do you think we're going to talk about today?
Today is definitely something weird about an Olympic ceremony or an Olympic event.
That would have been a good one, but you know that I never actually pay attention to current world events when I'm planning these things.
Well, you definitely like to go back in time often, but some are more recent than others.
Yeah. I
just feel like there's got to be a good story out there.
There probably is. But we're not going to tell it today.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. You always ask me, so I always say something.
And I always
I'm always wrong.
Yeah. But I like the guessing. Did your microphone get turned up by any chance?
Does it
feel like you're yelling?
Oh,
I mean, you're not feel like you're yelling, but I feel like it's super loud in my ear. But no, it's normal.
Well, maybe your volume is up in your headphones. I can talk quieter.
No, don't talk quieter. Be yourself, Ethne. Just let it all out.
Okay.
Okay, so today we're going back to Japan.
Ooh, I love Japan.
We've had a few Japanese stories. We've had, obviously, our first story, which is last week was my favorite, humanity story. Our first episode ever is my favorite story of
it was the most
weird.
Cringeworthy.
Yeah.
And now there's a documentary. It is legitimately cringeworthy.
And then we went to Japan again for
the crazy lady who never turned off her music and made noise. Ugh.
But today we're going to Japan from a more historical context.
Okay.
Not so pop culture-y.
Okay.
Even though Japan's great for pop culture
stories.
Oh,
there's so many.
We're going back to the turn of the century, the early 1900s.
Okay.
And war was just about to break out between Japan and Russia.
Japan and Russia. Okay. Yeah, they are kind of close.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah.
Just across, little...
Well, I know.
little sea
I
there.
always forget how huge Russia got. I mean, how far over it goes. So, yeah.
And so we had Emperor Meiji.
Meiji? How do you spell it?
Meiji.
Meiji.
And Tsar Nicholas II.
I swear it's like Tsar Nicholas, and then it goes like all the way up to 27,
Well, actually, the second, Tsar Nicholas II, was the last Tsar.
Oh, really?
So this is the end of the Romanov dynasty. This is the father of Anastasia.
Oh,
The famous
Mm-hmm.
Anastasia, who,
Story.
in theory, and all the stories are like she got away when the rest of the family was murdered by Lenin. Mm-hmm. But she didn't.
Oh, well, that's sad.
Yeah, she died there too. That's not what the story's about.
Also, Mike is wearing a shirt.
I wear shirts most days.
Yeah, of Nothing Shameful, which is a local band.
It's true.
So I'm putting a shout out for anyone who is listening. If you like to support local bands, our friend is in it, and it's called Nothing Shameful.
He's a lead guitarist. Very good.
Yeah, very, very good. You can look it up on Spotify. And anyway,
Amazon Music,
we
wherever.
always like to throw out local stuff. So
Yeah, they're great.
they are.
Kind of late 2009, 10, somewhere in there kind of genre.
Does it have a hint of Foo Fighters?
No, I mean, maybe. To me, it has a hint of like your emo-y, grunge, rock,
Yeah.
pop, punk.
Not quite as hard
kind
as
of a Fall Out Boy,
Yeah.
My Chemical Romance-y
It's good.
vibe.
It's just really good. So anyway, check it out.
Yeah. Sea Salt. That's my favorite song on the album.
Perfect.
That's what my shirt is. It's a Sea Salt shirt.
Yep.
So there's one thing the Russians love. It's what?
To kill people?
No. What are you talking about? Russians are great.
Didn't we talk about this last year?
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Okay, so Lenin and Stalin like to kill people.
Okay.
But just general Russians.
Oh, fur hats.
They probably do love fur hats. I thought you would say vodka.
Would they do like that too?
What I was going to say is the cold.
Oh.
Which is why they like vodka and fur hats.
I don't know that they really like the cold. They just have to be able to endure the cold.
They love the cold.
Oh, okay.
So historically, they've been known to fight better in the cold than others.
Really?
Well, because that's their thing all the time. In the cold.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all.
Oh, no, it sounds terrible. Anything in the cold sucks.
No, snowboarding's great.
Not if it's real cold.
Well,
I like
okay.
spring snowboarding way more than cold snowboarding.
How cold are we talking in Celsius?
We'll get there later
Oh,
for
okay.
our story.
All right. That's fine.
But cold. You wouldn't want to be snowboarding in it.
No, I've definitely been cold snowboarding. So yeah,
Well,
I get
when
what
we
you're
get
saying.
to the temperatures, you tell me if you've ever been snowboarding in that temperature.
I'm sure I haven't.
So, like I said, Japan was looking at a potential war with Russia, and they were very worried about their own troops and how they would fare in cold weather fighting.
So Japan was leaving to go fight in Russia?
Not necessarily. They were actually worried, well, both ways. They were worried that Russia would invade up north, and they were worried if they have to go into Russia, just...
Because if you're fighting on Japanese soil, Hokkaido does get snow. They do have mountains, but it's not cold
Well, you're going to...
in Japan.
Yeah, we're going to talk about super butt cold in Japan here in a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this like a freak?
But compared to Siberia, you're probably right.
Yeah, okay.
So the Japanese had just ended a war with China where they fought in Korea, and there were a lot of cold fighting over there, and they didn't do super hot in the cold. Oh, it's bad English. But, and so the Japanese had fears that the Russians were going to bomb the northern shore of Honshu, the main Japanese island.
Mm-hmm.
And that would essentially eliminate all the roads and railroad lines along the north, and it would push the Japanese further inland to have to move gear and troops and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And so this was problematic because in the middle of Honshu up north is a mountain range called the Hokkoda Mountains.
Okay.
Now, they're not huge mountains.
Mm-mm.
We're talking like 5,000 feet. So, I mean, pretty small as far as mountain stories go. I mean, I think the one we did a few weeks ago was like 29,000 feet, 24,000 feet, like big mountains. but still they get snowy and stuff in that area. And so the Japanese decided, okay, we need to do something to see if we can even, if we have to move troops and personnel and gear through these mountains, can we even do it? So that's when they got the idea to come up with a special unit that was given the mission to establish a route through the snowy mountains to see if it could be done.
Sounds like a great job.
Sounds like a terrible job.
Just not fun at all.
So the group that was chosen for this mission was the 5th Regiment, naturally. Yeah.
That'd be like the snow regiment or the mountain regiment.
So the 5th Regiment was a group of soldiers already stationed in the north. So in theory, they were more acclimatized to the cold.
Right.
So that's why they were chosen. Now, this is interesting. Chosen to lead this expedition was Captain Bunkichi Kanari. We're just going to call him Bunkichi from now on because that's fun to say.
That is funny to say. His first name is Bunkichi? Bunkichi.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he was from the north and so was more used to the cold.
Yeah.
So
it is much more humid. Like,
I remember being in Japan in January with you, and it wasn't snowy at all, but oh my goodness, it was cold.
Yeah, it has. So then if you take even colder, it's just even that much more cold
and I
to
guess
the
up
bone.
here in the northern part of Honshu, so I looked at a map today, there's a big gulf right at the very north part. And I guess just the way that this rain, or there's monsoons that hit that side, but the sun never really does. So it's like big time wet on that side of these mountains.
Ugh.
So it is very humid. So like I said, he was from the north. His mission was to take a select group of 210 men from this 5th Regiment.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah. From Aomori, which is in that bay that I was talking about, the very northern part. Then hike 44 miles through the Hokkoda Mountains to the east coast.
44 miles. Yeesh.
And see, now this was supposed to be done in just a couple days.
This reminds me of the Russian, anyway, keep going. The book I read recently.
So the mission was to take place January 23rd, 1902.
1902. That was a long time ago.
It would be cold and miserable.
Yes.
On purpose to see, because they needed to know, can we do this in the cold and miserable?
Yeah, this sounds
Lo and behold, it was cold and miserable. So, interesting, and I don't really know why, nor is history, but second in command on this mission was Major Shin Yamaguchi.
Yamaguchi's a very common last name.
Yeah. I feel like there was a, excuse me, I feel like there was a famous...
figure skater?
Yeah.
Christy.
Yeah.
Yamaguchi.
Speaking of Olympics. Good old Christy Yamaguchi.
But that's a pretty common, like Suzuki. Suzuki's a pretty common last name.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I gotcha. Would you rather have the last name of Suzuki or Yamaguchi?
I think Suzuki.
Yeah, I think I like Yamaguchi.
Yeah.
It's just more fun to say.
Yama
you have to write it out longer.
Is mountain.
Yeah.
And I believe Gucci is in between. Like
I want
in a
to
valley.
be Yamayoshi.
Yep. Mountain Yoshi?
Yeah. Like Mount
the
Yoshi.
Cute little whatever he is. What is he?
He's a Yoshi.
Is he a dragon? Dinosaur?
I don't know what he is.
He's
the
cute.
best character in Mario.
Yeah, he's cute.
So, Yamayoshi. No, this is Yamaguchi.
Yeah,
Now, like I said, this is interesting that he was second in command because he was a major. So he actually outranked Bunkichi.
Oh, because he was a captain. See, I'm not good at, I would never know who, I'm not good at that.
Which is fine.
Okay.
I don't know all the ranks, and they change based on the branches anyways and stuff. Plus, this is a whole other country. Yeah. But, so he was second in command, but he was his superior.
Maybe because he's not as experienced in the mountains.
Maybe.
Because that guy's
But he was, but that's the funny thing was, he was a highly decorated officer. He had fought in the Sino-Japanese War, the one that we were talking about in Korea.
Maybe he is they're trying to kind of train the other guy to be like the leader because he doesn't obviously want to do these missions. So he's like, I'll be the second in command. Let him learn and feel important. Okay.
But he spoke French and English.
Wow.
Major Yamaguchi.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
He fought, like I said, in the Sino-Japanese War in the cold. So he had experience there.
Yeah.
So his specific mission on this mission was to plan the route they would take.
Okay.
How would you say that? Plan the route they would take?
Not route.
Yeah, route they would take. But I say route. And so that's kind of where we are here. So they go ahead, they leave 23rd January 1902.
How many people again?
210 troops.
Lot.
So from the moment they leave, they instantly realize one of their problems that they have.
Not enough food.
Nope. It says, even though these troops are stationed in the north, that's why they were chosen, many of them had never experienced the cold of the north.
Because the mountain range is way more colder. Oh, okay.
So think if you were like a soldier from Texas, and then you get stationed right out of Texas in Minnesota.
Yeah. No.
And then they're like, hey, we need you to go fight in Siberia. We're sending the troop or the unit from Minnesota because they're used to the cold. And you're like, no, I'm from Texas. I don't know anything about the cold.
Right. So the leader and the second guy have experience in cold, but really not everybody.
A lot of their troops are just troops that...
Yeah, that is the first mistake.
That's just where
you
they got
really
stationed,
do
right?
need to have acclimatized,
Yeah.
tough. I mean, like Canadians are a different breed. They legitimately are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so as they're hiking up this mountain, they're hearing some of their troops say, hey, we've never seen snow before.
Gosh, it's a bad sign.
It's a bad sign.
That's a real bad sign.
It's a real bad sign. So day one, like, it's only supposed to take like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Day one is an 11-mile hike to Shiro Hot Springs.
Ooh, they get to go to the hot springs.
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful trip. You're just walking up to the onsen.
Yeah, I love it.
onsens.
Me too.
Need to turn my page. Please wait 1 second.
This is our turning page pause.
Yep. So, Major Yamaguchi liked the route he had made. He was stopping at hot springs.
I mean, yeah.
And he didn't really see anything hard about it. And so they had a local guide that was there to help them, but he essentially told them, you can go home. We don't need you because, we're just hiking up to the hot springs.
So if it's 44 miles and they plan on doing this a couple of days, but they're only doing 11 miles the first day, first of all, there's no way that that's going to mathematically work itself out. Because you can't hike at night.
30 miles.
But you can't really do that in a day. Can you?
Yeah, 30 miles would be a long day.
I mean, you could run, right?
Right.
Like a marathon in a day.
But when I hike, it's about a 20-minute mile. So that means you can do 3 miles in an hour.
Sure.
So if you did it for 10 hours, you could do 30 miles.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could.
But that's
and that would be and that would be daylight. You would have mostly daylight in that. So yeah, I guess it's doable.
So anyways, all of their gear. So the guys had their individual gear on them, but then all of the big gear, like tents and food and cooking stuff.
Dog sleds.
Human sleds. A sled. One giant sled.
Like Santa Claus.
Took turns pulling.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that is terrible.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And so everything was going fine day one until they get up to this higher pass. So they climb this pass, and then they've got like this little half mile or so they've got to get to, and then over this next pass. But the snow suddenly got significantly heavier, and it starts getting really cold, and everything's starting to freeze. Like the actual gear is starting to freeze and stuff. And so this is where we start to see some logistical flaws of their mission.
Yeah.
So like
I also feel like a big sled is a really bad idea. It's not going to be maneuverable over like mountain passes and tiny areas and stuff. And so I feel like multiple smaller sleds would have been way better too.
Well, you would fit right into this conversation that we're about to have then.
Okay.
Because Major Yamaguchi, who was the senior commander but second in command, thought his route was good. That he'd planned this out good. Captain Bunkichi, the mission's leader, but Yamaguchi's inferior, thought that maybe the conditions were too bad and that they should just turn around and go back because it was so difficult moving this gear.
Yeah.
His thoughts were like, maybe this mission isn't. But then he realized something. His realization, and I wonder if this is because you're second in command, if you're in command, but you're not really in command. So you're trying to maybe do more than you normally would. Does that make sense? Because he came to the realization that his mission wasn't to see if it was hard to move this gear. He knew that would be true. His mission to see, was it possible to move this gear through the mountains? If he went back and reported it was snowing and hard, they were like, yeah, duh, we knew it was going to be snowing and hard, but could you do it? And he'd be like, I don't know. We turned around, so he felt, no, Yamaguchi, even though he's my inferior, he's really my superior. He thinks the route's good. And our job is to find out, is this physically possible to do? So
and we're going to die trying.
They kept going. So by late that afternoon, the troops were just 2.5 miles from the hot springs.
Oh, that's not far at all.
No. But they needed to climb one last mountain to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the troops carrying their own gear could barely move. Like that's how
cold, the wind.
Cold and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But those with the sled were essentially not moving at all. Like they couldn't get it up this hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so they continued on, but like I said, the sled pullers quickly fell behind, separating from the rest of the men.
I almost wonder if they should have just maybe at that point abandoned the sled in the moment.
Right.
And gotten to their base and regrouped again after some,
Some sake and hot springs.
Yeah.
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 That's not a bad idea. The dang hindsight 2020 thing.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they fell behind. Tsubukichi sent back 2 groups of men to help pull the sled.
Mm-hmm.
Said, all right, guys, go back there. But by 6 p.m., it was clear that the sled wasn't going to make it up the mountain. There was just no way it was going to work. By this time, his troops are hungry. All the food's frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decides, which is maybe a good idea, they're just going to abandon the sled. So all the men were ordered, get as much gear off the sled as you can, and you're going to carry, everyone's just going to carry as much crap as you can carry, which is like cooking utensils. I mean, it's not like little things, it's big things.
Right.
But there was nothing else they could do, right? At the same time, when he sent these troops back to help the sled, he sent 15 men forward to go try to find the trail to the springs. So while they're back here gathering all the gear, these guys are off there looking, because he wants to know, even if we could bring the sled, would it even fit? And so so the 15 men who go to find it actually end up getting lost.
Oh.
And they get lost because a blizzard blows in.
Right. No visibility.
Like less than a few feet visibility. Like that's how bad the visibility was.
Mm-hmm.
So these men were completely lost, just roaming around the woods. And it just so happens by sheer luck that they run back into the main body of the party.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
But now Bukichi's realizing like this is just a hot mess. And so there was no way to find the trail because they can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than risk getting lost like the 15 men, they decided we're just going to hunker down and we're going to camp right here.
Ugh, that's terrible too.
Yeah. The problem was they couldn't set up camp because everything was frozen solid.
Well, and it's not going to be great because exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did the best they could, but that night just got brutally cold.
Oh my gosh.
And Bukichi realized that if they just sat there all night,
they're going to die.
They're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do? Where do you go?
I think you get on your hands and knees and you crawl because the visibility is a little bit better as you get lower, and you literally are trying.
Are these insider Canadian secrets? How to deal with the cold?
I don't know. Maybe it's growing
like
up in Canada.
Fire.
No, I really do think if you're crawling, you're still moving, but you're also not getting like pelted in the face with blowing snow because down low there's going to be
right, and
you're going to try to find a trail, but I don't know what a trail that's so remote would even look like.
Yeah,
like I mean, it doesn't even think that there was going to be a
times.
trail.
So you're within a mile or two of the hot springs, but you don't know where they are.
Exactly.
But that means you're 8 or 9 miles away from where you started, which is a long ways away.
But I would assume you're using compasses and so even if you don't have a trail, if you have a compass and you know a general direction, you're still moving. You're down low.
Yep.
Like I think
they have a map and compasses.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that is, and then honestly, you can be close to each other. So like you can see the other person's feet in front of you. That's what I would do.
All right. So Bunkichi comes up with an idea that he decides we're going to go back and find our own tracks, and we're just going to go back and call the mission off.
No.
Well, even if you're going to crawl, where are you going to crawl?
Like I said.
But to where?
The general direction of the hot spring.
Gotcha.
Using, like, not an actual trail that you had, but, like, your compass.
You just cut through the forest. You're going to bushwhack.
I mean, you've got to do something.
Right.
But, I mean, I would imagine on a mountain range, you're not really in trees. There's nothing really to protect you besides maybe some boulders.
Well, remember, these mountains are only like 5,000 feet tall.
So maybe they are tree covered?
Yeah, they're still in pretty dense forests. It's not above a tree
That's actually
line.
a good thing for protection.
Not for visibility. It definitely could be
sure,
for protection.
But for
yeah.
protection? Okay. I don't know. I was picturing more of like my Rocky Mountains.
Right.
Yeah. Never really thinking that it's all tree. Yeah.
So, anyways, he decides we're just calling the mission. We're going to
That's
find our
so
own
much
trail
further.
and go back.
Yeah, but if the wind's blowing and the snow is falling, you're not going to have a trail. There's not going to be a trail left.
True. But if you can never find the hot springs, you're even more trouble. It's like if you can get there, cool. But if you don't, you're worse off.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
I wonder what my dad would say.
Yeah, you should ask him.
Well, Dad, what would you say? He'll listen.
Someday.
Yeah. No, I mean, probably
he will
on
listen.
Wednesday.
You think he'll listen that quick? I feel like your parents listen.
They're pretty up to date.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
In the summer, I think they listen more because they like to listen when they travel.
Yeah. I think
Like driving back and forth
they
to
listen
work.
every week.
Well, good. We'll find out.
Yeah.
If you text us on Wednesday or
Yeah.
Thursday. But of course, so they leave at 2 a.m. to find their own tracks. But like you said, they never find their tracks because it's a blizzard.
Yep. You won't.
And if they found their tracks, we wouldn't be talking about the story because we don't talk about stories like that.
Why would we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they went back and everything was fine.
Right.
Yeah, no.
The end.
Yeah, that's a boring podcast. So an hour later, they're completely lost.
Oh, this is like
They
heart-wrenching.
find themselves inside of a steep gorge with high cliffs on both sides.
Okay.
Now they know that the gorge won't take them to where they need to go.
Right. But it would also offer, again, a little bit of protection from wind.
Or there was like the gorge in the Columbia River and the wind's just howling like
Right
crazy
straight down
down
it. Oh, I'm picturing a lot
because
smaller.
I don't know how big it was.
Yeah, I'm
But
picturing.
they decide they can't stay there.
Okay.
But they know going through it is not going to get them anywhere they want to be.
This is so terrible.
And so they decide they have to climb the cliffs.
Well, and like with 200, like why are you doing this mission for the first time ever with 210 people? It's how do you communicate down the line? This is absurd. You do this mission with like 5 people. That's where you start.
All right.
Like these people
General
are
Ethne over
dumb.
here.
Just kidding. Okay.
No, Japanese people are the smartest. of
They
all the
are
people.
smart, but it was a long time ago. Maybe their brains hadn't fully evolved.
I don't think that's how that works.
It doesn't. It was a joke.
So, can you imagine trying to climb a cliff in a blizzard in the dark when you're already frozen
And holding like tons of stuff.
with no ropes? Like you're just
The whole thing is terrible. Like
just
it's
climbing the
cringeworthy. I don't love these stories of these people just like.
But Lincoln will love this story.
I know.
You got a happy story last week. Today is a less happy story. So, so as the men climb in the darkness, they can hear their fellow soldiers
Falling.
slipping and falling.
Yeah, and
You can't see them, but they can hear screaming in the darkness and hearing crunching as they hit the ground. But you can't go back.
No.
You can't do anything for them. You can't turn around because
I mean, you're
either
you're
you make it to the
helpless.
top or you die. Those are your two options. Because you can't descend the cliff in the dark blizzard.
Nope. I don't even know how you can ascend, but
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what these cliffs look like.
yeah,
You know?
I should have been there.
You should have been there. Most of these stories could use your help.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, they have to just keep going up, you know? So when the sun rises in the morning, those that are still alive on top have to make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so a lower ranking officer, Sergeant Sato.
Seto.
Yeah.
I had a neighbor named Seto, and she would take me to the. So when it's not an onsen because it's not all natural and it's more like the communal bathing. It has a different name and it's called the Sento, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That word sounds familiar.
Sato would take me to the Sento. She had a car and she let me drive her car twice and everything's backwards like Europe there.
And little.
And tiny.
Jeez,
her car was so tiny I could hug it.
I could pick up cars.
But she let me drive it twice because obviously when I lived there I didn't have a car. Anyway, Sato. Okay, yep.
So Sergeant Sato, once he's on top of this ridge in the morning, tells Major Yamaguchi, hey, I think I know where the trail is to the hot springs. Now, this is another one of those weird command issues. So Bunkichi didn't love this idea, but Major Yamaguchi puts Sergeant Sato temporarily in command.
Okay.
And so they go and they follow his trail to the hot springs. Now, after some time, they find themselves on a bank of a river with no sign of a trail to be seen. He was wrong in his assumption.
But a river is a good thing to follow.
Generally speaking, you are correct. If you're lost in the mountains and you find a river, go downstream until you come to civilization.
Yeah.
I learned that from watching Bear Grylls.
Okay.
And being an Eagle Scout.
Okay.
But mostly Bear Grylls.
Yeah. I definitely haven't learned that from Bear Grylls. Just, I think from, I don't know, being raised by my dad. I have no idea. It's just like it
But in
seems
this scenario, there wasn't.
Well, but onsens have water, right? So, I don't know. Anyway.
It seems like there was lots of rivers in this area.
Sure. Okay.
So anyways, they get to this river. And it's not where they need to be.
Okay.
Long story short. So 2 soldiers, sick of being cold, feel that where they need to be is on the other side of the river. So they try to cross the river.
Oh.
And they are instantly swept away.
Yeah, if you're sick of being cold.
Don't get in a wet frozen river.
Just a tiny tidbit. Those are the ones from Houston.
Yeah. So, but as you can tell, this isn't a calm river. They're
obviously, if they're getting swept away, then yeah. Well, I don't even know. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is where you are mentally, all right? You're lost and frozen. You're starving.
Mm-hmm. Probably dehydrated. Well, maybe you can eat the snow.
Yeah, I think that actually is not, I don't know. I feel like there's something weird with that, where it doesn't work as well.
Well, it's still going to be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just witnessed 2 of your friends being swept away, screaming as they float down a river. The night before, you heard your friends falling to their deaths all around you. And you've been going the wrong way on your last sliver of hope, only to now find out that it's not the right way. So where are you mentally right now? Probably not a good place.
I'm going to set up camp. I'm going to build a shelter. I'm going to build a lean-to, and I'm going to figure out what food's left. And I'm going to, I don't know.
Sit there?
Homestead. I'm going to start homesteading. I mean, what are your options? You're in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, I assume the options they do, where you keep trying to find your way out.
Stab a fish in the river with a pointy stick, and I don't know. Try to build a fire, and I mean, I don't know.
So, on top of all that, the only way for them to go was up more cliffs.
Oh, this is just so terrible. Okay.
So they do. And more men fall to their deaths.
Why are you taking 210 people on a mission like this? Why?
I don't know.
Why? Because they're like, survivors, we want out of 210, we're like, we just want 1 to be able to make it.
You just got to know if it's possible, man. 1 will do the trick.
Okay.
So of the survivors of the second round of bare knuckle ice wall climbing, they decide, okay, we've got a shelter. We have to rest. We're tired.
We need to regroup.
But they've lost all of their digging gear by this point.
Oh, with other people or in
they have no shovels. They have no way to dig into the snow.
Holy smokes.
Bunkichi finds a slight depression in the mountain where they can kind of hide from the wind for the night. So they hunker down like penguins,
Huddled. They rotate, person in the middle.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is part of the story you're not going to believe.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if I want to know. Okay.
That night was the coldest night ever recorded in Japanese history.
Are you serious?
Not like it was a cold night. The coldest night ever recorded.
To this day?
To this day.
Oh, this is literally a death sentence mission. I can't even handle it.
How cold do you think the coldest day
In Japan?
In Japan.
North Japan, in the mountains.
And then I want to know if you've been snowboarding in this weather.
I mean, it's minus 25 Celsius.
Minus 41.
Holy smokes. Is that with the wind chill?
I don't know.
Okay.
Minus 41 Celsius is also minus 41 Fahrenheit.
Oh, really? That's where they meet up? Meet up?
Minus 41 Celsius is minus 41.8, so almost 42 Fahrenheit.
Huh. I don't understand how Fahrenheit works at all. Like, not even
just
remotely.
Like Celsius.
No.
It's just a measurement of temperature.
I don't know how they ever meet up to each other.
Oh, I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, the equation's what? Like,
divide
9/5 times whatever minus 32 or 5/9 times whatever plus 32.
But I still don't understand how they can ever meet up. Yeah. I just don't. It's like 0 is freezing, up is warm, down is bad. Or not bad, cold.
You ever been snowboarding in minus 41?
No. I've definitely been in the minus double digits. I don't think I've ever been above minus 20 though, ever. And it is cold.
Yeah.
I mean, those chair lifts, woof, dang.
Minus 41.
I'd be curious to know what my brother would say. Look what the coldest. He's a little more diehard.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
true.
He's done over minus 20 though. Never.
These guys were in minus 41.
I mean, where I've lived has definitely gotten
Sure.
that cold, but never choose to be out in it more than like running to your car or running into your, school. That's it.
That makes sense because that sounds stupid.
Did they all literally freeze like together did they literally die as a frozen chunk of squished up bodies?
No, they didn't actually.
No?
No. But by the middle of the night, men were freezing to death.
Oh,
Like,
literally. Mm-hmm.
And so at 3 a.m., Bunkichi decides to tell everybody, hey, we got to get up and get moving because we can't just sit here because we're just going to die.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what the best answer is that.
There's no good answer here. Right.
Yeah.
So...
Because then if you're in this depression, somewhat protected from the elements and the wind and the blowing snow, you could maybe like stay in place, but be marching and not choosing to like leave that shelter because then you're now exposed to all these other elements that it's
true.
And you're in the dark and then you run the risk
I think
of
at this point, though,
separated.
you start thinking like, I'm dying no matter what.
I just don't
I'm
think
taking
you're
my
thinking,
shot.
Sure.
If it's a 1 in a million that I'm walking the right direction, I'd rather that than just stand here and die.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the best answer is like a leader of a company. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Anyway.
And it's one thing if you could make a fire in a shelter and, hunker down.
Yeah.
But they're just literally standing out in minus 41 degree weather.
Yeah. Okay.
Either ways, whether it's right or wrong, they decide they're moving.
Okay.
So they hike all day.
So it's daytime now. They made
Well,
it
they
through
leave
the
at
night.
3 a.m.
Oh,
and
okay.
They start hiking and they hike,
Okay.
Neither Bunkichi or Yamaguchi have any idea where they are. Their compasses are frozen.
Oh, my gosh.
They can't see because of the blizzard, so they don't know any landmarks. So the map's useless. They're just going off of instinct or hope or
I feel
whatever.
like in a mountain range, you know how there's literally like different weather patterns as you get up? I think the biggest thing they need to be doing is going down because you're going to get out of a weather pattern. Like you can literally drive up and see Mount Spokane and how this whole weather pattern is like hovering above the top of the mountain. And if you're generally going down, I feel like you're going to get yourself out of that weather pattern.
That's true.
But there's a lot of times you're going up to go down.
Exactly.
Woo!
You
That was cool.
Anthony knocked over a big lamp thing. I thought it was going to smack you in the head.
Well, I mean, it kind of almost did.
Yeah.
You caught it just in
Good
time.
job. So I think these mountains, quote unquote mountains, because they're not so tall, they're probably really broad. Like it sounds like they have lots of little ups and downs.
So it'd be hard to know
So you're not
in
really
the dark.
changing your elevation
Right.
a whole lot. Even if it's a couple hundred feet, that's not going to change any for you weather-wise. But man, it's going to kick your butt if you're trying to climb 600 feet, in dense snow up to your waist or...
Yeah. Gosh, what's the right answer? Okay.
So they hike all day. They don't know where they are.
Have you told me how many people are left?
I have not.
You have not.
At this point, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But we will get there at some point in the story.
Okay, cool.
By evening that day, now hypothermia is setting in.
Oh, for sure.
Frantically, rapidly amongst the troops.
Which affects also your...
Yep. And so a lot of them are
brain.
starting to lose it. And they're getting to that point where you get hot when you're about to die.
Like you're burning.
And so they're stripping off their clothes. They're jumping in rivers. And obviously, anyone who does any of these things is dead. Right.
Yeah.
And so at this point, Bukiji tells his troops, hey, I want to let you guys in on a secret. I'm lost.
Just in case they didn't know.
In case you don't know, this is not the planned route.
Okay. I love that he's just now saying this.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to save face this whole time. Like, trust me, this is all part of the plan.
I'd just be like, Yamaguchi picked the route. He's the one that made you go up the cliffs twice. That wasn't me.
Okay. Oh, so good.
So he tells him he's lost, and then he dismisses him. And he says, I'm no longer your commander. Every man for himself. If you think you know where to go, go. You know?
That's also a little bit terrifying.
Yeah. So I think for some troops, that probably was super demoralizing, terrifying. For others, they're probably thinking like, thank goodness you know what you're doing. I know where to go, you know?
But don't you think by this point with people dying, if you felt like you really knew where you were going, you would just say, hey, at this point, I'm going to go this way. Anyone that wants to join me?
Americans would. Japanese wouldn't.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They're really good at that. Okay. All right.
So they split up in all directions, just scattered, you know, like ants, just trying to figure out wherever they think they need to be. So when this happens, there's a new character in our story. Captain Karashi, K-U-R-A-I-S-H-I.
K-U-R-A-I-S-H-I. Kuraishi.
Captain Kuraishi. So he's pretty with it still. And he takes charge of a group of 15 men who he feels are also pretty with it.
Pretty with it.
Physically, mentally. This includes the surgeon or the chief doctor on the group.
It's a good person to keep with you.
And just other guys who are just more with it. He was very smart. Like, he seems like he was a very good soldier. Obviously, when you're in an ordeal like this, these guys are losing their minds here and there, right? And so he orders one of his troops to blow his trumpet as hard as he can every time his troops start to lose it. So they would have like mass hallucinations sometimes and things like that. And so he would have them blow this trumpet to kind of snap everyone back.
Why do they have a trumpet?
I think a lot of these back in this is pre-World War I.
Like, is this a way to
communicate?
I
think trumpeters were pretty common in all armies up until fairly recently.
Okay.
And it works, keeping his troops kind of focused and in line. So at one point, he sends 2 scouts ahead, and they actually come back claiming that they found the trail that leads back to Aomori.
Wow.
And in reality, they had found the right trail. And so even though they're now on the right trail, a lot of the guys simply still just can't make it.
Right.
I mean, and so he sends the 2 scouts. I mean, they're constantly going back, coming back, coming back.
It's like our dog.
Yeah. But at one point, they don't come back. And he finds, the rest of the group finds them
frozen,
dead in each other's arms, like trying to stay warm.
Sad.
His trumpet player dies with his trumpet literally frozen to his lips.
Face. Yeah.
And people, it's just like, you just freeze right where you are.
It's crazy. It's kind of a weird concept.
It is a weird concept. And so, but once on the trail, they actually run into another group of men who had also found the trail.
From their same company.
From the 210.
Yeah.
This other group was led by none other than Bukinji. So he eventually did find the right trail. And Yamaguchi was also in this party.
Oh, okay.
So they come back. So now the 2 groups camp together that night. But on the morning of January 26th, so how many days is it? 3 days?
3 or 4.
There's only 23rd. 60 soldiers left alive.
So,
from 210 to 60.
Yikes. That's not great.
And then that day, the 2 groups hike again all day, and they huddle together to sleep that night. And when they wake up in the morning, they're down to only 30.
Gosh, 30 died in the night?
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so They go hiking more. They're still trying to get back.
Is so terrible.
But they come to a fork in the road on the trail, and they don't know which way to go.
Yeah.
And so they decide we're going to break into two different groups.
Saisho gu junken po.
Hokkoda show.
Hokkoda show.
Hachi juhachi.
So for those of you who don't speak Japanese that are listening,
Which is me.
it is rock, paper, scissors is what I was saying.
And what did I say? 77?
Well, at first you said, so when you get the same in
true.
Japanese, so you don't start the whole thing again. They just say aiko de show and you do another sign. And then if you get the same again, it's aiko de show. You don't say the whole thing again in Japanese. We don't do that
rock,
in
paper,
English.
scissors, shoot.
Kind
until
of.
you
Yeah.
beat each other.
But there is a little bit more time. Aiko de show is still a little bit more time than just
Right.
shoot.
Right.
Anyway.
The concept.
That's the concept. So you said that first, and then you said, what did you say? Hachi or
Hachi juhachi.
that's 88.
Or maybe nanaju.
Nanaju is 70.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Those are
Nanaju
from my
nana would be 70.
Saturday Night Light skits with Mike
Chris
Myers
Farley?
and Chris
Oh,
Farley.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Japanese game show.
Yes, which is hilarious. If
That's
you
great.
if you haven't seen it, you really need to watch it.
So they break back up into their two groups. Well, they're not actually. They break up into two groups.
Mm-hmm.
So
Maybe
Kuraishi
15 and 15 kind of ish.
and Yamaguchi
Mm-hmm.
go one way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say they go to the right. I don't know if it's actually the right or not.
Sure,
But
they go
to
one
the
way.
right.
Mm-hmm.
This path ends up leading to a river. Not the right way.
Oh, dang.
But once they get there, they get hit with another blizzard.
Oh, my goodness.
And they can't see anything again.
Honey, these stories are torture.
Yeah. So, Kuraishi knew by this time that, hey, there's got to be a search party looking for us.
Just make noise.
Well,
Set off a flare.
you could do any of these things if you could. But he knows there's got to be a search party looking for us because we're late. Like, we didn't ever showed up where we're supposed to show up. So at this point, we're just going to sit and wait. We're not going to keep roaming around.
Okay.
And so that's what they do.
Okay.
Now group 2 that went to the left.
Mm-hmm.
This is Bukinchi.
Mm-hmm.
So again, yes, they're going the right way, but his men are literally dropping dead as they march.
Oh, literally. Mm-hmm.
And so eventually it is only Bunkichi and one other man, Corporal Goto. Only two left of this group. And they literally get to a point where they see lights in the distance. And it is a small town on the outskirts of Aomori, where they started. And I think in the joy of seeing the lights, that was all Bunkichi could do. And he literally tells Goto, go get help. And he sits down and dies. Yeah. He just can't go any farther.
That's sad.
Yeah.
He was so close.
So close. And so Corporal Goto continues on to get help. And he's marching, but he just gets too tired.
Oh.
And he stops and he freezes like a statue standing in place.
So he doesn't get to the lights?
Doesn't get to the lights.
Oh.
But a search party has been sent out. And the search party actually comes across the statue of Corporal Goto standing there, frozen. And you're never going to believe this. He was still alive. He was frozen, but he was still alive.
I don't think I know what that means.
So he wasn't frozen solid, obviously. He was so tired.
He's
that
like
he
Tin
couldn't
Man.
move. Yeah. And ice was growing on him. But he was still alive when they found him.
Wow.
And at that point, the search party realizes, oh, this is much worse than we thought they were. We thought maybe they're just lost in the mountains or whatever. But no, obviously this is really bad if there's one of them and he's a statue standing here. So they try to guess any route that they could have taken.
Oh, yeah.
And they send thousands of people out looking for them.
Wow.
And they take these big giant sticks, trying 6-foot sticks.
Okay.
And they shove them in the snow as they walk. And anytime they hit something, they dig it out.
And they think if it's a person or not?
Right. And so they end up finding, pretty much all the bodies, but obviously most of them are dead.
What about the crew by the water that just decided to wait?
So 2 days later, they find Yamaguchi and Kuraishi in a cave with a few of their men, and they were still alive.
See, you got to find shelter.
Yep.
I'm saying start building,
so
figuring out how to make a fire.
They rescued them. Major Yamaguchi did die in the hospital. Now, officially he died of cardiac arrest, but there's some rumors that he couldn't handle the shame of not, being successful in his mission.
Cardiac arrested himself, probably.
Potentially. Yeah. Potentially. I don't know if it's probable or not, but either way, he didn't make it out of the hospital.
Yeah. That is a very big thing in Japanese culture, is just like the shame of things.
Which is why they would never abandon them to begin with.
Exactly.
Right? So 3 days later, they find 2 more soldiers alive in a mining shack.
Oh.
So they bring them, but only one of them ends up surviving getting out of the mountains. In the end, 11 of the 210 survived.
Oh my gosh, that's so terrible.
Yeah. And 8 of those 11 had to have multiple arms or legs amputated.
Amputated, for sure.
Yeah. And another one had to have a bunch of fingers amputated. So there were essentially 2 that survived relatively unscathed permanently.
Gee whiz. That's a terrible mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the men who survived was Kuraishi. And they found that most of the men who survived were officers. And they were officers who had bought their own winter gear. And they had stuff that was better than the issued uniform. And so, for example, he had, what did he have? Rubber boots? He had something he was the only one who had them.
They're probably insulated or something.
Right. So he was able to stave off the frostbite, which also made sense why he was so much more mentally with it than the other guys.
Yep.
But essentially,
gear.
If you had just your standard issued Japanese gear, you weren't going to make it.
Gotcha.
And the few that did had spent their own money on better stuff.
Interesting.
So to date, the Hokkoda mountain disaster is the worst mountaineering disaster in history.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Hokkoda.
Yeah. So it does get kind of cold in northern Japan.
Yeah. But if that's the coldest recorded in history, I don't think those temperatures are very common.
Definitely not that cold.
Or even consistent. I mean, you could say in Edmonton or Calgary, you get into the minus double digits with wind chills every year. Like,
sure,
30. You know what I mean? So I don't think Japan could claim that they really. I mean, I guess maybe up in those upper mountains, but not probably where most people are living. So that's really a sad story.
In Amori in the winter.
Oh, Morty. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it generally is around like 0.
Yeah.
Celsius,
it's very
or 32, 33.
I mean, they literally
up in the mountains. So
up in the mountains is going to be a little bit different for sure. But this is record. It's so sad.
What are the odds? You're out there, supposedly out there for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And you pick the coldest recorded day ever to be there.
The worst. That's the worst.
So
that's kind of sad.
Super sad.
Well, maybe next week we should do a wild Olympic story.
So I actually had another script that I was writing that was a little more longer. And then I realized we have to do this today. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to put this on the back burner. This is a story I've been sitting on for a long time. So maybe we'll do that one next week when I have more time to finish it.
Gotcha.
But there's not death and things in it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you'll like it. Lincoln won't. So, all right, everybody, have a wonderful week. We will be back with
more strange things.
Epic tales of max strangeness.
Wow.
Or not.
Wow.
Something like that. All right, everyone, have a good one. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.